Most people know my dad for his role in the Carter administration. He was the chief architect of Carter's campaign for president. Then once in the White House, later on was his chief of staff.
A Boy from Georgia is my dad's third book. The first was about his role in negotiating the hostages out of Iran. And his second book was a memoir about his various battles with cancer. This third book is a story about a young Southern boy coming to the slow realization that nearly every person he loves and respects is on the wrong side of history when it comes to race.
It's a story about seeing the suffering that racism brought firsthand in the South and realizing that your family and the people you respect are in some ways culpable.
He couldn't wrap his head around how people of a different race had to live differently, and how his family could just accept that when he knew it wasn't right. It didn't feel right to him.
As my dad puts it in the book, he grew up in a world that was a half step removed from slavery. One day his maid is serving him breakfast, and the next he's seeing her march in protest with Martin Luther King Jr.
But the book deals with more than just the prejudice and racism stemming from a culture that approved of segregation.
A large part of the story is my father discovering his Jewish heritage, which was hidden from him up until he was in his 20s.
He didn't even realize that his maternal grandmother was Jewish until he was at her funeral and seeing her grave plot between two people with the last name Gottheimer. He said to his family, "Who are these Jews? They're your family. That's your family."
I think this book tells a universal story. My father had a lot of the challenges everybody else did, from young love to terrible grades to understanding what his family believed and where he fit.
My dad was famous for his sense of humor, and that is not lost in this book. There are a lot of funny accounts of growing up in the South.
Chasing girls and getting into music, even how he had Otis Redding played his high school prom.
Reading the book feels like talking to my dad.
You can really see my father's greatest and strongest traits, his intense social intelligence, his compassion for others. You can see those take form as he deals with these challenges of growing up in the South.
He had great mental capacity for strategy and management, but he was just as smart when it came to dealing with people.
I think his best quality was his love and generosity and his huge heart. And he loved people.
It kind of took a lifetime to write it because it has a lifetime of insight in it. It seems like today, in 2015, that stories about race relations in the 1950s and 1960s are irrelevant and dusty. But the truth is, they're as relevant now as they ever have been.
Although we like to think of ourselves as so far removed from our racist past, in a lot of ways, that racism has just been redesigned and reorganized in a different fashion. I think that my father's personal journey that he undergoes in this book is something that a lot of people still need to consider and could learn from. As a country, as individuals, we still have so very far to travel.